What are house prices in Edmonton? So are you wondering what house prices would go for here in Edmonton? What is $300,000 going to get you? Is it going to get you anything? What's $1 million going to get you? We're going to talk about that in this video. So in Edmonton, if you're not familiar with how it works, Edmonton is a city that started in the center of the city and it grew outwards. And so if you take a look at the map, the central part of the city is the older part. So we're talking about 100 years old. So we're not super old of a city. We're still a relatively younger city. As you move out towards the ring road, that's that yellow line, that's the Anthony Henday, that becomes newer in homes. So anything outside of the Anthony Henday is about 30 or newer, basically. And in the middle, you've got 100 years moving to 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40 years old as you move out in the whole span of Edmonton. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about first was the homes that are 70 to 100 years old. What is that price point? How many of those houses sell here in Edmonton? So the lowest price in that age range is $107,000 all the way up to $1.312 million. So that's quite the span. That's pretty much almost the entire price bracket of Edmonton in terms of house sales. Now, the average price of this age range is actually $346,200, with 792 properties sold in the last 12 months. Now, the whole house that was $107,000, you might be wondering where that was. That was a house built in 1910 in Parkdale. My guess is that the house wasn't super livable because usually you're selling things for land when it's that low, especially that old. When you're looking over 100 years old, or 90 years old, it's called a heritage home. In Edmonton, we have character homes and we have heritage homes. Heritage homes are homes that are protected by the city. They have to stay and maintain its original state. But of course, structurally, sometimes they're falling apart. I've shown some houses that you're literally sideways. The foundation is actually deteriorated. So what do you do in those situations? They take the house, they jack it up and pour a new foundation. Now, it's not that simple. I'm making it sound super overly simple, but there's engineers involved and there's a lot of cost involved. If you really love those types of homes, you've got to have a pretty hefty budget and a passion to keep that kind of home there. Now, character homes are also old homes, but they're not protected, so you can do some major renovations and not worry about preserving all of the different elements of the house. If you look at the $1.312 million house that sold this last 12 months. If you take a look at the house, it's actually in the Highlands, so kind of up by the river up north, and it was in most of its original state. The kitchen kind of looked like it was maybe updated in the 90s, but you see a lot of the original features of that home built in 1936. One of the things that it mentions was an upgraded sewer line, and that's something I want to mention. Realistically, all houses should have their sewer lines inspected, but especially these older ones, like the 100-year, 90-year-old houses, I'm not sure what state their sewer line would be in, but it definitely probably would need a change. We've seen houses built in the 1960s, 70s, 50s that needed changing. We also seen houses that are brand new within 5 years that the sewer line sagged and had to get replaced. So sewer lines are something you want to make sure you consider when you're looking about house prices. House prices are the price of the house, but you don't want to have the structure have issues. Now, other areas that are built in this age range are areas such as Belgravia, Crestwood, Glenora, and Windsor Park. Now, if we take a look at 1953 to 1973, we are looking at about 2,050 single families sold with an average of $398,660. The lowest price home sold for $108,000. It was a 963 square foot house in Lee Ridge. And the highest price was $3.195 million in Dakota. So that's really interesting. And over 29 houses were actually sold over $1 million from the 1953 to 1973 era. So these high-end neighborhoods that are older would be found in places like Laurier Heights, Parkview, Grandview Heights, Crestwood, Parkview, and Westbrook. So we're gonna move up to the 30 to 50-year-olds, and we're looking at 1973 to 1993. You've got 1,784 homes that sold in this price range with an average of $421,590, and the lowest price at $125 to $1.66 million. And so the lowest price point home sold in La Pearl, which is West Edmonton, an older area. And the higher end property that sold for over 1.6 was located in Westridge. Also in the West End, this is the neighborhood that has the big stairs by the river valley, and it was over 6,000 square feet. Some other areas that you will find in this age era would be Wedgwood Heights, which is an exclusive smaller area in West Edmonton. Westbrook Estates, Ramsey Heights, these are all south. Blue Quill and Twin Brooks are also in the same area. They also had the higher end properties, over $1 million. Radigan Ridge, also part of this, is called the Old Riverbend area. And then you've also got Oliskew, Westridge, they're right beside each other in the West End. And of course, Windermere. Windermere, you might be wondering, it can't be that new of a neighborhood, and I wondered the same thing. It is on Windermere Drive. So Windermere Drive is one of the older streets, and this is a house that's actually older. And so a lot of the older Windermere properties have been around for a while. They're the ones facing, Windermere Drive is an exclusive area facing the river valley. And so these homes are older. They're not the new Windermere. Now, if you look at 1994 and newer, you see the bulk of the sales in Edmonton are in this age era. We had over 5,388 sales, ranging from 175,000 to 3.58 million, and the average was 524,000. So definitely, this is where we typically see sales, and people are usually more comfortable in homes that are not as old because there's not as much price tag to take on in general for home maintenance. Now, it doesn't mean that in the 1970s you can't find a house that's been renovated. Of course you can, but there's a different range of prices in what you're going to pay to get a house that is renovated, that is move-in ready, that doesn't require all the extra works or an update in cosmetics. So the house that sold for $175,000 was in Macaulay, which was over 2,000 square feet. So very interesting. I am suspicious about, again, the livability of that property. So if you're watching this video and you're not from Edmonton, $175,000 is way too low for a regular single family home. That's why I tell you the average in this price point is over $500,000. So that's, when I say average, you take all the sales and kind of average all of them, because you're going to have the outliers, the low and the high, but the majority of them are going to be in this range. So that means typically these are move-in ready properties or homes that people are happy to live in at this price range in this age era of 1993 and newer. Now, if you take a look at the sales over $1 million that are 1994 and newer, you've got 159 sales in this price era. And you have neighborhoods like McKernan to Willigertown, Hodgson, Hayes Ridge, which is also Yager Ridge, Bully Heights, Grandview Heights, Windermere, Chappelle, Summerside, Strathcona, Highlands, McTaggart, Garneau, Pleasant View, Uplands, Keswick, Strathcona, and Ritchie. So some of these older neighborhoods, you must thinking, Strathcona is pretty old of a neighborhood. Yes, but this is infill homes. So these are brand new builds. They've knocked down the house and put in a brand new home, hence 1994 and newer. So the $3.58 million house was actually a 3,799 square foot house built in 2006. Now, if we take a look at 2020 and newer, I just figured what kind of sales are you looking at in the last 3 years, for years built, I mean? Like, what are people more comfortable with? You can see here that we've had only 60 homes sold over $1 million, and it goes from $1 million to $2.625 million for these high-end homes that are built in 2020 and newer. So typically, if you've built a house in 2020 that's over $1 million, you're likely still living in it. So that's why we're not seeing as many sales, but also our sales is a bell curve. And so 350 to 450 is kind of that height, and it goes down like this, 500, 600, and it just keeps going down. So over $1 million is that smaller echelon, but there are still prices selling and homes selling. This is Edmonton, not Calgary. Calgary has a bigger bubble on that last half. So I think their upper bell is a lot higher than our price point. So what about the types of houses? So if we're looking at townhouses in Edmonton, you've got condominiumized townhouses and you've got the ones with no condo fees. Now, those ones with no condo fees came out in the last 5 to 6 years. So the majority of the more affordable ones with the condo fees are typically under 300. I'm seeing the ones that have no condo fees in the new build land anywhere from the low 300s and up. We're looking more at 350s now because a low 300s maybe is a 2-bedroom and a very small unit. Now keep in mind, these stats that I'm telling you are from Paragon, which is our MLS system for resale. If a builder puts a house on to Paragon, then it would record, but a lot of builders don't put their sales in here. So I just want you to keep in mind that new home sales aren't always attributed in these stats that I'm sharing with you. So townhouses sold between $62,000 to $588,000 with an average of $234,000 for a townhouse. The area that the lowest price point sold was in Rundle Heights, which is North Edmonton, and the highest price point was in Garipi. It's one of the adult-only townhouses in Garipi, and the condo fees are $662 a month. We had 1,829 townhouses sell in Edmonton in the last 12 months. Now, if you look at 200,000 to 300,000, because that's usually what people are thinking of when they're looking at townhouses here in Edmonton, they're scattered throughout the entire city of Edmonton, and you're typically looking at 1970s, 1980s type properties. If you're wanting the newer homes in the last 20 years or so, you're looking usually at the higher 280s to 90s to like low 300s, and the average there is about like the 320 to 350 would get you a townhouse with condo fees. Now, something to note, because that price range is so close, if you could buy a townhouse with condo fees at 320 or buy one with no condo fees at 350, 360, you can see the challenge in how it would be to sell that house with condo fees versus no condo fees. Now, duplexes are a little different than townhouses. Townhouses are 3 or more attached. Duplexes is just one other one attached to you. So they're called half duplexes. So usually those are single family home, which means no condo fees, and one side and one side. Now, sometimes you will see condominiumized duplexes, and you will, when you talk about condominiumized, it's literally between the two. And when you have a duplex single family, you basically are just sharing that one wall. Interesting note, the new builds are not doing as many of them because they take too much land, and they make more money when they sell townhouses because it can fit more on a small piece of land. 1,625 duplexes sold in the last 12 months, ranging from $94,000 to $1.15 million. The average is $376,000, and 1,234 were single family, so just under 400 were condominiumized. Other types of homes we have here at Edmonton are bungalows. Now, they're sometimes known as ranchers from other different areas. Bungalow is the home that's one level and a basement. Now, some of the bungalows in Edmonton, depending on the area, will only have a crawl space and not a basement, but it is more standard to see a bungalow with a basement. So the bungalow is 1,500 square feet above grade. That's what MLS shows you. If the basement, they have a basement, there's another usually close to 1,500 square feet in the basement as well. So 3,000 square foot of living space, not bad for a first home. We did that when we first bought our first home years and years and years ago because it was a great starter home. We didn't need a huge 2-story. Now, I will mention 2 stories here in a minute, but bungalows is one style of home that you can get that's pretty popular and common, especially in the older neighborhoods here in Edmonton. The newer neighborhoods are more expensive, and they're usually 1 bedrooms plus den because the land costs more money, so you're usually finding people over 50 purchasing bungalows. But for younger couples and younger families, you're seeing them buy the bungalows that were built in the 50s, 60s that have maybe some renovations. Some of them have been completely gutted and renovated, so they make for some really nice starter homes. 2,768 bungalows were sold in Edmonton in the last 12 months, ranging from $110,000 to $2.58 million, with a $393,000 average. Now, another type of home in Edmonton is 4-level splits. What is a 4-level split? Well, it's just that. There's 4 different levels in the home. So when you walk in, usually you go up the stairs to the main floor, then you've got another set of stairs to the living area. And if you're back on the main floor, you go down half a way. That's the 3rd level, and then down to the basement. Now, that's in general. There are some split levels that are a little bit different in structure, but the key element is always 4 levels. Now, some of the 3rd level and 4th levels are below grade, and sometimes the 3rd level is above grade. So the square footage kind of varies because we only measure above grade in terms of putting it there. Of course, you still have the other 2 levels that are livable. They're just not counted in the overall total square footage. So 4-level splits that sold in Edmonton in the last 12 months, there was 503 sell from $127,000 to $1.4 million with an average of $395,000. We also have bi-levels. Bi-levels are similar to bungalows because, again, one main floor, and then one basement. The big difference about bi-levels is that they usually have big windows in the basement because the basement's a bit more raised. And so it doesn't feel as dungeonous as a bungalow. And bi-levels, we had 609 sell in the last 12 months, ranging from $160,000 to $1.25 million, with the average of $402,000. Now, two stories, what you've all been waiting for. Two stories are actually the most popular. I don't think that's a surprise to you guys. We had 5,498 sell in the last 12 months, ranging from $110,000 to $3.58 million, with a $519,000 average. So if you're looking to buy, in general, a two-story in Edmonton, you want to budget that. Can we find you ones that are cheaper? 100%. But then you're going to be looking at different elements in terms of condition, the year. You can also find two stories that are more affordable in surrounding areas like Spruce Grove and Stony Plain and Leduc and Beaumont. Now, Beaumont's a little bit competitive, so it might be challenging, but St. Albert and Sherwood Park, those guys are a little bit usually more expensive depending on the neighborhood you're looking at. You could also find 1.5 stories, which is really common in the central parts of Edmonton because a lot of the 1.5 stories were built back about 100 years, 90 years ago. So you're gonna see some of those. You're gonna see 5-level splits, 3-level splits. There's a variety of homes here in Edmonton, and they're usually mostly wood frame built. We live in a climate where the temperature changes from -40 to +40. So the houses have to be able to withstand that kind of weather temperature. So hopefully these house prices in Edmonton helped you. If you have any questions, comment down below and we'll talk to you in the next video.